It's me, sexy me. I've never shown y'all that I can make cheesecakes. Y'all seen pictures on Facebook, but now y'all get to see the magic as it happens in the kitchen right now. So without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at the ingredients I have here. I'm going to make a pumpkin cheesecake. I got 2 cups of crushed ginger snaps. I'm going to go with the authenticity, so I use ginger snaps instead of graham crackers or vanilla wafers like I normally do. Use a little bit of margarine. I don't use butter because it's too expensive and it's just a crust anyhow. So don't want to put too much in there. You know, it's going to absorb. Mix it around. You just want enough so that you can get the the dry ingredients a little wet. I know my wife is going to laugh because every time she hears that she gets hilarious and has all the sexual connotation. Forgive her for that. She don't know any better. I'm just going to mix this around a little bit. It's going to clump up somewhat. That's alright. Try to do all this in advance. I might need a little bit more margarine. Hopefully not. The ginger snaps are a little bit drier than other types of crust that I use. But I don't want to get too overwhelmed. And in some cases, if I do overuse on the margarine, I might have to crush some more, just to make the crumbs. If not, then I just make do with what I have. And it's a simple fix. All you do is just put it in the oven, bake it for about 5 to 8 minutes. Ooh, it's a big old chunk. Very crunchy. Crujiente. I throw a little bit of Spanish up in that bitch. Alright, so I got my spring form right here. I'm going to spray the edges and the bottom. A little bit of this butter flavored spray from Mazola. Worst thing you can do is try to remove the cheesecake and the shit is sticking all over the place, but you gotta make it right. And unlike my wife, my cheesecakes normally don't crack. I don't know what she does wrong, but she does it wrong. She gets mad. There's a reason why I do it right and she does it wrong, because I'm the man. Alright. Now with the crust, there's a lot of different ways you can do it. Some people will line the edges. I like to just do the bottom. When it comes to the cheesecakes, direct contact with the heat and the metal, can easily dry out the sides. But at the same time, when you're doing a cheesecake, you're going to bake it at a low temperature anyhow. Not cook. I hate when people say cook a cake. Shit sounds stupid. I'm just going to flatten this out. Try to get the edges as much as possible because it is a spring form. The bottom does come off when you release the sides. I want to make sure that some of the custard, because the cheesecake, that's all it is, a custard. Very similar to Mexican flan. But I'm almost finished setting this. I'm not going to bake it. I think this is going to set pretty good. I normally don't eat gingerbread too much. And the only time I make these is around the holidays, or if someone does want to order one, that's all good. Okay, so I got that. Wipe off my hands. I like to be very sanitary, fixing food for other people. You can't just be digging in your ass crack and all that. You got to keep your hands nice and clean. I want people to be able to trust that, the food that I'm giving to them. So basically, this is the crust right here. Now, as far as with the other ingredients, right here, this is just a combination. I like to shortcut on my ingredients because I don't like to be in the kitchen all damn day. But this right here is just 4 cups of sugar, granulated sugar, and a ½ cup of enriched flour. You sift it, make sure you get all the lumps out. I have 3/4 cups of milk. Doesn't matter if you use 2% whole milk, whatever. Milk. Inside of that, I got some dark vinegar. So I use about ½ teaspoon of that. Once again, I want to get all that out of the way so that I'm not in the kitchen all damn day. We got 4 large eggs. Don't have to mix them. You can if you want to, but you know, the eggs help to give it a lot of richness. Because I'm making a pumpkin cheesecake, it's not, well, this is generic, but this pumpkin custard. And then of course, the base for your cheesecake right here, I have 3 blocks of cream cheese. Normally I use 4, but since I'm making a pumpkin cheesecake and I'm using the pumpkin custard, this is going to compensate for one of the blocks right here. Alright, now first thing I like to do, I like to put a little bit of the combination of sugar and flour in the bottom of my mixer. This is my baby right here. This has served me for a couple of good years. I keep it nice and clean, runs great. It's KitchenAid. Now the reason why I do this is because the cheesecake, it will stick to the bottom, and with the sugar on there, you know, it's going to help to keep it from sticking. So put those in there. One of the things that I didn't do, because sometimes, in fact most of the times when I'm doing my cheesecakes, with each block when I put in there, I'll put a little bit of sugar in there. The sugar acts as an abrasive, so it helps to break it down a lot faster. I'll just put a little bit on top. I won't put it all in there just yet. When I start the mixing process, I'll gradually pour it in slowly. You don't want to mix it on fast because you'll make a big ass mess. Alright, so let's go ahead and make this set. Make sure with the KitchenAid, you know, you got the lock on this side here. And of course, again, you know, I use a paddle attachment. And as you see, not a lot of it's going to stick on the bottom. It is going to stick on the sides a little bit. There's a lot of different ways. You know, a lot of people say you should alternate the wet and dry ingredients when you're building this. And that's a good practice. But like I said, if you can find a way to shortcut it and still make it work, that's good. You don't want to over mix it, because in the long run that's going to cause problems as well. Once I get everything in there, I'll turn it up a little bit higher just to get most of it, or a good majority of it, off of the paddle. And that slapping sound that you hear, and the wife giggling because she thinks that's the sound of sex. Y'all gotta understand, she's Mexican, she ain't got her mind right, and that's all she thinks about, horny old broad. Okay, so what I'm going to do, and get my spatula, scrape off the paddle. Woman, would you stop laughing? To get your mind right. What the hell? I love my wife. She's hilarious. You know, if there's any reason to smile every day, it's because she makes me that way. She's crazy. I try to get as much of this off of here as possible. Yeah, me and my wife, we got a great relationship. We've been married for almost 10 years. I don't know how she puts up with my ass, but, you know, I think when she leaves out of the house, she's like Clark Kent. You know, she puts a cape with a big ass S on it. She's just superwoman. She makes it happen. And then from there, I just scrape down the sides, you know. When I first started doing cheesecakes, I tried to do it with them little handheld mixers. If you're going to do that with the handheld mixer, I would strongly recommend that you get Philadelphia cream cheese. You can take that directly out of the refrigerator, and it's really, really soft and pliable. I get this generic cream cheese, pardon me, but I ain't rich. I'm just making this for my coworkers, so you know I'm not going to spend a whole bunch of money on them motherfuckers. Let's go ahead and put the paddle back on. And then I'm going to start mixing again. Then I'm just going to gradually, on the slowest speed, go ahead and mix in the sugar and flour combination. Can't forget to lock. With the KitchenAid, it's got this little peg, so you know, I'm really not supposed to do this, but I don't need my shit flying off the handle and killing somebody. turn it up a little bit faster. Now it's really starting to break down. Alright, now from here I'm going to scrape the sides once again. I try to be as thorough as possible. Since I'm videotaping this, or my wife is videotaping it for me, and I'm just trying to expedite this process, I try to get as much off the blade. Last thing you want is to eat a cheesecake and have some lumps of, just the regular cream cheese. You get that bit of sweetness, and then all of a sudden you get the blandness of just the cream cheese by itself. Me, I really don't eat cream cheese by itself. I think it's pretty nasty. When I first started baking cheesecakes, I was convinced, because of the name, that I really didn't like it. It wasn't until I made my 10th one and actually tried it that I realized that it was pretty good. And the surprising thing about me and my wife, we can bake cheesecakes and regular cakes. We really don't eat a lot of sweets and shit. We try to make sure by the time we're 70 years old, we still got our teeth in our head. But then again, that can be pretty adventurous if she don't have any teeth. I ain't gonna go into all that, but you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? You don't know what I'm saying. Okay.
Back to the cheesecake.
Yeah, back to the cheesecake, y'all. Get your mind right. Alright, so got that. Put the paddle attachment back on. Oops. Now from there, let me take off this paddle attachment. I'm going to go ahead and put in the pumpkin custard. Now this is a 15-ounce can. Usually the blocks of cream cheese are 8 ounces, so it might make it a little loose. That's alright. She's giggling for a woman. I said loose. I tell you, you got a strange sense of humor. See that, y'all? If y'all ever want to hang out with me and my wife, you got to be very, very cautious of what you say. She's full of one-liners, y'all. Full of them. She'll start giggling. You wonder why. She ain't laughing at you. She's laughing with you. She just got a dirty mind. Alright. Alright. I'm going to go ahead and mix that. Oh, so pretty. Now it's starting to look like something, y'all. It really is. Now, one of the things that you'll know about a cheesecake, you have distinctive flavors. Of course, with the crust, you have the ginger snap, and as far as with the the custard itself, you put in some nutmeg. Now, me, I'm really not one to measure a whole bunch. I just kind of pour it as I go, and then use my nose because I got a big ass nose, big nostrils. It's good being black. That way I can kind of gauge and add some flavor to it. Luckily, my cheesecakes, even though I'm using a cup of sugar, and my law for doing a cheesecake, because you can make them various sizes. For me, as a rule of thumb, you're going to use 1/4 cup of sugar per block of cream cheese. That's if you want to make a big one or a small one. I usually use 4 blocks of cream cheese. Sometimes I can use 5. I use a 9-inch springform, but I don't want to make them too large, but I do it a New York style. I don't like the little pie crust type cheesecakes, I'm the kind of person, ego comes into play, so cheesecake's got to be big. I'm not trying to overcompensate. I'm pretty built. I ain't going any further than that. I was going to use some cinnamon, but nah. Smells like pumpkin pie, y'all. And a little bit of nutmeg. My sinuses are a little acting up, so can't really get too much, can't gauge too much with the flavor of nutmeg. And pretty much, I only bought this because I do make the pumpkin cheesecakes. It's got a nice consistency. Let's go ahead and do that. From here, as I'm proceeding forward, I'm going to be very careful with the wet ingredients. This is just a little bit thicker than the normal consistency that I, by the time I'm finished, before I really pop this baby into the oven. Speaking of that, I need to preheat my oven. Set the baby on bake. I bake my cheesecakes at 250 degrees. Depending on whether the size of the cheesecake, normally with a 9-inch spring form, I'll bake it for about 65 minutes. You need to understand when you're baking a cheesecake, when it's done, it's going to be a little wobbly in the center. It's going to be about a 2-3 inch diameter. Don't try to just throw it back in the oven like it's underdone. It will eventually set if you put it in the refrigerator. My wife, she started making cheesecake. She didn't give a damn if it was cold or hot, but she was ready to eat it right there. I like to let my cheesecake sit overnight. It's going to set nice and firm. It's going to have all them good flavors in there. Scrape down the sides. Oh, that's beautiful.
Thank you.
My wife is beautiful too, cabrona. Está roca. All right.
Smells good in here.
Oh yeah.
It's not even baking yet.
So I'll turn that on. I'm going to go ahead and put in the eggs. I'm going to put them in one at a time. Make sure the paddle breaks up the yolks. Once again, it's going to provide that richness. And usually when you're baking the cheesecakes, the yolk is going to give it that distinctive color. Everybody looks like a big old glob of snot. Imagine that when you're eating. Once again, you're doing all this on the very slowest setting of your mixer. I love my KitchenAid mixer. As far as with the egg mix, the milk, I may not use all of that. Once again, by using the entire 15 ounce container of the pumpkin custard, it's going to have somewhat of a water base to it. So that will allow me to cut back on the wet portion of the ingredients. Oh, smells wonderful. And also, some people like to use a water bath. Typically, when I've seen people use a water bath, they put the cheesecake in a cake pan. I have a large cake pan, but with the spring form, it helps just to get the cheesecake out of the baking container easily. I haven't really done it in a cake pan. I don't like the idea because if the crust sticks, you make a big old mess. I mean, if you do it right, you know how to do it right, and I know how to do it right. I just like the spring form. And also, if you're going to use a spring form, just like with any other baking, if you use a silver container, it's not going to attract as much heat as a spring form that's got the dark sides. So you got to be very careful with your baking and the temperatures, because if you overbake on a cheesecake, it will split. Okay, so it's got a really nice consistency here. Add a little bit of egg. I keep saying egg, damn it. And add a little bit of milk in here in a few moments. I'll probably use about half of that, as long as I can get that vanilla in there just to give it a nice little flavor. As far as the vanilla, if you have a preference between dark and light, that's entirely up to you. If you're making just a regular cheesecake, I would prefer using the light, basically the blonde, over the dark one. But once again, it is just a matter of preference. My mother-in-law, she got me this vanilla, some time ago. Still smells good, and I use it pretty much in any baking that I do, whether it's a regular cake, if I'm making my own frosting, or with a cheesecake. And once again, just I mean, for the most part, at this point, you don't necessarily have to scrape the sides, but I like to go ahead and do that anyhow. Scrape off the spatula. I don't want to waste any of this. Not going to really make a difference, but still. Right. And the last phase of this, just a little bit of milk. Once again, I'm not going to use the entire 3/4 cups, but normally this is what I do use, the entire amount. Just pour it in slowly. It's a beautiful thing, ladies and gentlemen. Beautiful thing. Okay. Based on my measurement here, I'm going to just settle with about a 1/2 cup of milk with the vanilla. And even though you guys won't see it, because I will be making my own whipped cream with this, it's a very simple, just, you know, some heavy cream and a little bit of sugar. You don't want to use too much because you already have the sweetness of the cheesecake, and you don't want to overwhelm the person who's eating the cheesecake with the whipped cream that's way too sweet. So I've always been fortunate enough that when I do make my cheesecakes, they don't come out and just make you want to go to a dentist and get all your teeth taken out. Isn't that making something else? I'm sorry I'm going overboard with this, but too bad you guys can't be here to smell this. It smells pretty good. And once it starts to get in the oven and bake, it smells even better. And then of course, the tasting. One last thing I'm going to do before I pour the custard into the spring form, I'm taking some aluminum foil and just line the bottom of the spring form. I didn't get all the sides, and as I stated, any pan where the sides release, there's going to be some space in between there. I live in an apartment, so my experience, especially when my wife and I, we moved from Arlington, Texas down to here, and we lost that damn deposit because those assholes said that we didn't clean the oven thoroughly. So with this, you don't want the custard to, leak out of the spring form, because once it gets to the bottom of the oven, it's going to make a big old mess. This feels great. I think this crust, once it bakes, even at the low temperature, it's going to turn out pretty good. My towel, here it is. Alright. So, we'll go ahead and scrape off the sides here. We're pretty much done with the mixing. So clean this off. This is about the perfect consistency. I'm doing this for my coworkers. We're not going to really have any type of potluck or anything at work, but a lot of people are starting to understand that I do bake cheesecakes, and I have to admit I do it pretty damn good. I don't think it's on par with Cheesecake Factory, but I can guarantee you, not quite as expensive. Cheesecake Factory got some good cheesecake. I'll give them that. Real good. Hella good. Alright. this in here. Oh, that's beautiful. Spray it down the sides. I be seeing like on these cook shows where they just pour it in there without scraping much of the sides. It drives me crazy. That's a lot of good cheesecake, you know. Try to get it all. Okay. My little baggie here. Most of the time when I'm doing this, I like to clean as I go. I don't like a messy kitchen when I'm baking, because all the other stuff gets in the way. And normally I don't like anyone in the kitchen with me, because they get in the way. Hands off. That show is pretty. Can I have some cheesecake too? Fuck no. Just kidding. Alright. I still got the oven right here. What I'm going to do is move this top rack. Hold on, burn this shit out of my hands. Okay, there we go. Not bad. Okay. And then of course with this, and sometimes, you know, just tap this against the surface, make some of the air bubbles come up to the top. Alright, you see the nutmeg all up in there? Oh man, I can't wait to get a hold of this. Put the baby in the oven on the bottom rack. Alright, from here, timer. That baby for 65 minutes. Another crucial point, when you're baking a cheesecake, be sure not to open the oven. You let that heat escape. You know, there's a whole convection process with baking in there. So make sure not to open the oven. You know, most ovens will have a light. I'll go ahead and just take a look in there when I turn on the light, you know, a little opening right there. And then the last part of it, once it's finished baking, once again, you just kind of tap the side. You'll see a little bit of it wobbling in the middle. That's perfectly fine. What you do is just let it naturally cool down. Crack your the oven open for about maybe 30 minutes. Let that heat escape. It'll just gradually cool down. Then you can take it out, put it on top for another 30 minutes. Because I bake most of my cheesecakes late at night, by the time I'm finished and I'm ready for it to set, I'll just place it in the refrigerator. You know, it'll set in a good 6 to 8 hours. But in most cases, if you want it really good, let it set for about 12 hours. Yeah, baby, it's hot in here. I'm sweating. I can feel it. But yes, anyhow, that is basically it. You guys are now seeing that I do bake cheesecakes. I don't just go to the store and buy this shit, make it look all pretty, and then claim the fame for it. I put some work. I've been doing this for a couple of years. I take a lot of pride in it. I enjoy when people smile when they eat my food because it's very important. I love good food. I'm very particular, and I want people to enjoy it because me and my wife, we love to bake, and we do sell them, make a pretty decent amount of money. So if you guys want to give this recipe a try, go ahead and do so. If you have your own recipes or if you have any ideas, go ahead and share them with me. I would appreciate that. I want to thank you. Peace.
Awesome.